Well guys, our first ever engine pull is finally complete. Enjoy the video. Alright, so last time we worked on this car, it was a lot of wiring, it was a lot of electrical, so I think what I'm going to do is actually change up the pace a little bit, and we're going to go straight for the exhaust, and then we're going to go for the axle nuts. These are honestly the two biggest and scariest parts for me about this job, so I think if we can get the headers off and the axles out, we'll be looking really good. Hey, I got this camera going. I'll put you on this video right now. Hey guys, this mailman's teasing me about the car. Look at this guy. This is the coolest mailman in the world. All right guys, so the headers are loose. I did have to cut a couple of the lines in here, actually all the lines. I pulled this one loose, but all the others I just cut because they're gonna get replaced anyway. A little bit better access working on the exhaust in here, but the headers are loose. I know you guys can't see it, but you can hear it. And the only thing that went somewhat wrong, it's not even wrong, it's like totally fine, is the stud came out with the nut. You can see this one's a nut and the stud came out with it, but that's fine. We can just replace the stud anyway. It's always a little bit concerning working on exhaust. Obviously it gets hot, it gets cold, it gets rusty, so there's always a concern that something will break. I'm really happy that this went the way it did. Up next, we're gonna come around this way. Here's our drain bolt for our transmission. We're gonna get the fluid out of there, and then we're gonna get these axle nuts off and work on the axles. Milwaukee! So here is where we're at, guys. We got the axles free from the knuckles on both sides, which means they should be good to pull out from the transmission area. Let me show you guys the other side as well. Nice and loose, so we're good to get pulling on these. After that, guys, we have our transmission cables. And then I believe this one is heat here, and then that should be it before we pull.
That is so wrong!
Now I need to do a little bit more research on how to use the load leveler and all of that, but I'm guessing that this one and this one for the right side are gonna be our mounting points, and then probably this one and this one for the other side. You see, maybe there's a wider one to use, but we're looking good, guys. Alright guys, so here we are all cleaned up. We got all our transmission stuff. We also got our axles out, so we're nice and free in there as well. Show you guys the other side. There's the other side up in there. So I believe the next step is gonna be to assemble the crane, or I mean the stand. The crane's already done. And then we're gonna do some research on where we wanna bolt it up. Like I said, I think we're gonna do here and here for this side, and then these two probably on the other. But I'm gonna do a little research and see exactly how I wanna do that. Alright guys, so we're back out the next morning now. I might have smooth brained just a touch because we're actually going to want to drop the transmission before we pull the engine. We can pull both out at the same time, that's no problem. The problem is the engine and transmission together wouldn't mount up. We actually are going to want to mount this in where the clutch kind of goes. So it's going to be easier to mount the engine up to this stand without a transmission. Like I said guys, the transmission was going to come off anyway, so it's really no big deal. It's just a little bit more work now, but less work later. Let's get to it. Alright guys, so I went just a little bit ahead. Once again, I'll show you guys where we're at. We have all the stuff for our subframe loose. There was just a bracket in there. Got our tie rods out as well. Fortunately on this car, the sway bar runs under the exhaust too, which is nice. It loops over the exhaust on the RSX, which is a pain, but this should come down with the subframe without having to deal with that. And then there was one of these wire clips. Really hard to see where that was, but you can see the wire wiggling down there. It's loose now. So there's still some wires connected to the electronic power steering, but we're gonna deal with that once everything's out of the car. It'll be easier to grab onto. So now we have a jack supporting the underside of the subframe. We're just gonna go for our corner bolts. We got one here, one up here, and then the same two on this side, one up under here, and one up there as well. Drop this thing. Alright guys, so I'm trying to figure out why for the life of me I can't get this subframe to drop, and then I remember the steering system on this car is actually tied in over the subframe. So there were some brackets there holding on the subframe to the tie rod. I got that one, and then there is one on the other side. Damn trucks, dude. How you been scooping trash all day? Then there was one more way down in there too. There's the bolt chilling. You mean no battery? It's plugged in, bro. Alright guys, here's where we're at. The subframe has dropped. We just have a little bit more wiring right here for our power steering. Fortunately, it all comes into this cluster right here, so we're just gonna get this undone and we should be able to drop everything out. Alright guys, here's where we're at. We got the subframe out, so we're gonna probably put this in the back seat, and then we're gonna use our jacks to once again support our engine and transmission, because as you guys can see, it'll rock back and forth just a little bit without the front or rear mount now. So we're just gonna support the engine with one of them and the transmission with the other. All of these bolts are nice and loose here. I cracked those earlier, and yeah, we should be able to separate the transmission from the engine block just like we did on the RSX, and then we'll slowly lower it down once we undo this mount on the jack. Post cleanup, we got one jack down here supporting the underside of the engine, and then we've got another one over here. It's a little bit far to the right now. I wouldn't drop the transmission with it like this. What I'm doing now is honestly just keeping it kind of from moving this way. You guys will be able to tell. We got a lot of that we got all of that front to back wiggle out with the jacks. And then we also got a stand right here, is just in case when we do drop the transmission, if the engine wants to sag a little bit, this will catch that. So the transmission, I believe we're gonna drop down, and the engine we're gonna pull up out. Now you can do this either way. I've heard of people disconnecting the strut powers and dropping everything from the bottom. Obviously people lift these things straight up, so honestly I'm just doing it the way it makes the most sense to me. I don't have a manual for this car, so I'm definitely figuring it out as I go. I did the transmission by dropping it in the RSX, so that's the way I know how to do that. And then it's pretty clear where the jack points are gonna be for the engine, or where the mounting points are gonna be for the engine, for the crane, once the transmission's off. So I think this is the better way to do it. I think sometimes the long way is the easiest path when it comes to working on cars, and that is definitely the truth today, so. We keep moving. Oh, by the way, I missed all of these bolts when I was loosening the transmission. I forgot about all of these. They look very familiar from the RSX, so I'm gonna do that as well. Alright guys, so I just lost like an hour and a half to this one bolt. It was the one that goes in here. Yeah, it was really super duper cross-threaded. You can see it took some of the threads with it. And yeah, I had to, so for those of you guys who don't know how to work a cross-threaded bolt, say it was cross-threaded, it was stuck like this, and you're trying to back it out and it gets tight, you just tighten it back down and then loosen it back up. And then tighten it back down, loosen it a little more. Tighten it down, loosen back up, until eventually it'll come back out. That's how we got that done. Honestly, even though it sucks, it's one of those things that makes me kind of proud. 10 times out of 10 would have broken that before, and I'm learning, so it's nice. Another update for you guys, we got the intermediate shaft off the back here, just mounted up to a couple bolts here. So that is out. It's important to get that out because it connects the transmission to the back of the engine block. We also got this bolt here, got that one all set, and then we got that one up next. We're looking pretty good. Alright guys, so we got 1, 2, and 3 bolts. And I believe that is every bolt that connects the transmission to the block, so we are good to go. Up next we have the mount here. We're just going to remove the whole thing because now the jack is supporting right from the middle of the transmission, so we'll be able to lower it down with the jack when we're ready. Alright guys, so the transmission is out. I'm noticing a little bit of damage here and there, so we're going to have to take a look at this case and if we're really going to want to reuse it. There's some cracking here, and then on our mounting area where the accident was, down in here, just a little bit of cracking going on that mount spot. So hopefully it's not going into the case, because it is going into the case a little bit right there, so hopefully that's not too bad. Up next, we're gonna have to get a couple bolts for our engine stand because we don't have any that are long enough, so we're gonna be taking these to the hardware store and matching them up. It seems Sadie and I have run out of luck, guys. There was no bolts and O'Reillys that are gonna work, so I think we're actually out of luck until the hardware stores open up tomorrow morning. It's so rough being this close and having to call it quits, but that's all right. We're gonna get one more day's worth of work in and we should be good to go. What's going on, guys? Another beautiful day here in the driveway. I actually just went out to the hardware store and grabbed some hardware. So we have all the stuff that we're gonna need here to hook up our load leveler and get pulling. First things first though, before we get to any of that today, I actually do need to remove the clutch and flywheel stuff just so that our plate for our engine stand over here will mount up so that it'll mount up more flush. It won't mount up right if that's on there. So first things first, let's get this clutch and flywheel out. All right, guys, so on today's episode of Don't Be Like Me, I had an 11 hex on our flywheel bolts here. And as you can see, it was starting to strip it out pretty bad. It wasn't actually turning that bolt. So if you guys are using hex sockets, the 11 is the one that's gonna fit on, the 10's not. But if you use a round socket, the 10 will get on there and it'll get a way better bite. So I actually have one more stripped out flywheel bolt down here. And you guys will see this will bite on, hopefully much better. And I'm gonna try and do it one-handed. Right out. So that one was even stripped, and that'll show you. The 10 will bite right on there. As long as it's a round, the hex won't fit, but the round will grip right on there and pull it out for you. Alright guys, so here's our old clutch and flywheel. We're definitely going to be replacing this. I have a competition clutch stage 1.5 that's going in this car. So that is old. It looks like it's in a little bit better shape than the RSX's was, but not by much. Up next, we're going to be figuring out exactly how we want to move this chain around, get it connected. I've also got some new hardware here. These are the same thing as the transmission bolts, just longer. So they're M12 1.25. I'm not sure how long they are, but I got a whole bunch of like nuts and washers and stuff that we can use to make it work. So we're gonna figure that out. So the mounting points for the stand are gonna be one on this corner here, one there, one here it looks like. Yep, that one, and then one way down here. So that leaves us this guy and this guy to use for our chains. This side seems a little trickier because I don't know if I want to use these points. The reason for that is I don't know if I want the chain to be pulling that way. I think it would be better to have the chain kind of mounted this way. So I'm gonna look and see if there's a way I can get those mounted, but I don't know. Maybe we'll just send it. I see one more down in there that could work, but maybe that one. Really not sure. Alright guys, so it is a little bit later in the day. I've been working a ton on this, just trying to figure out what the best spots were. We got 1, 2, 3 is down in here. I'll show you from the side. There's 3 up there, and number 4 is going to be down in there for our chain. We've also got our mount for our stand all mounted up, guys. We got one in the back up there, another one up on the inside there too. And then we got one on the front and one on the bottom on the corner right there. Everything is tight, so we should be ready to get our hoist, grab from here, pull up. Once the whole thing comes up a little bit, we'll be able to line this up with our stand and we'll have a nice K20z3 on a stand. And there we have it, guys, our first ever engine pull on a 2007 Honda Civic SI. As always, guys, if you did enjoy the video, feel free to leave a like down below. Subscribe for more just like it because we are building the world's coolest RSX after this, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.